Yes, I'm still here, Hollywood. Coming up on today's episode.
I actually did some work after the Fall Guy. I did a lot of movies, and then I was just getting so many stalkers. I had one guy one night cut my screen in my bedroom and got in, and I shot him.
Tell me, what was it like being an instant sex symbol? Did you appreciate that? Did you like it? Did you like the attention?
Yeah. It was making me, I was making more money than I ever made in my life. I was young, I was happy, why not? I think that the Me Too went too far. You know, people would get in trouble for complimenting someone's hair. That's ridiculous.
80s television was famous for big blonde hair, snug jeans, and action scenes. There were two sex symbol Heathers who perfectly fit that casting call. One was on a show with Hooker in the name. The other was on the hunt for her next stunt. This is Still Here Hollywood. I'm Steve Kmetko. Join me with today's guest, Heather Thomas, from the TV series The Fall Guy. If you'd like to be more involved with us at Still Here Hollywood, you definitely can. Just visit patreon.com/stillherehollywood. You can support us for as little as $3 a month. You can get our episodes a day before they post anywhere else. You can see what guests will be coming up and submit questions for them. You can even tell us what stars you want us to have on as guests. You'll see what goes on before and after the episode, plus exclusive behind-the-scenes info, pics, video, and more. Again, that's patreon.com/stillherehollywood. So let's go back to the very beginning. Let's go to the very beginning. How did you get into acting?
I got into acting, well, when I was in junior high, these producers came to the school and they said, "We want your smart, loudmouth kids." And a bunch of teachers pointed at me because I was a troublemaker, but I was also in all the accelerated classes. And I ended up co-hosting, and writing a TV show on NBC that aired on Saturday mornings.
No kidding.
Where we interviewed celebrities. It was called Talking with a Giant. And it went on for 2 years, and they censored us a lot.
Well,
you know.
that happens.
But it was my first taste of being on camera, and I felt very comfortable on camera. And then around that time, I was starting to take drama classes, and I was in drama in, high school, and I was going to be Lena Wertmuller. I was going to enter. I was thinking I was going to be a filmmaker, but by the time I got to college, I started getting work, and one thing led to another.
Lena was the first woman who was nominated for an Oscar.
Yes.
How did The Fall Guy come about? Heather Thomas co-starred with Lee Majors on the Fall Guy TV series from 1981 to 1986. Her popularity also catapulted her into a pinup girl whose posters graced the walls of teen boys' rooms all over the world.
The Fall Guy came about like any acting job. I had done one series under my belt. I'd done Co-Ed Fever, and before that, I got an agent because I was in a show at UCLA, and I was starting to go out. I worked in a lot of commercials before that. It was great. Commercials paid for my film school. I wasn't a film major till I was a junior because they only had a 2-year program at UCLA in those days. And then I ended up, and I used to lie at doing all these commercials. I would say I could do anything. I remember I did a Milk Does a Body Good. Do you remember that campaign?
Oh, yeah.
I did one where I said I could ice skate. I could not ice skate. I could, get around, but they had to spin me. The director hated me. Or I had to do bull riding, eating Triscuits. That was a horrible experience. But I ended up getting The Fall Guy just like going out for any other audition.
I'll share a secret with you. I lied too to get into the business. Do you have a degree? Yes. But they didn't find out until when they did find out, they finally said, that's okay. You have enough experience. Okay, thanks. How much do you think you went to UCLA?
Yeah.
How much do you think that impacted your career here in Southern California?
I think it did because I was in a pipeline. UCLA actors were getting agents, and you used to have to audition if you were a theater major, and if you didn't get cast, you were part of the crew. You know, you worked on every production, major production they did, and I got in one called In the Boom Boom Room by Dave Rabe, and I was a dancer, so that got me an agent. And then what I learned in film school, I applied to writing and acting because I took a lot of writing classes. I took a lot of production classes too. But in my day, I got into the assistant director's program. I had worked as an actress by that time. They treated women assistant directors horrible in those days. Horrible. If you did your job, everybody hated you. If you were ditzy, everybody kind of said, "Oh, she's awful." It was a dead end street, and it wasn't until later in the 90s that women started breaking through directing. But in the 80s, the early 80s, it was rough. So I said, you know, I was making so much money. I just went with the flow of the least resistance, basically.
No fault in that.
Yeah, and I love acting. It's part of storytelling.
And then you left the Fall Guy, correct?
Yeah.
You cut your career short, ostensibly.
I actually did some work after the Fall Guy. I did a lot of movies, and then I was just getting so many stalkers. And
Really?
Yeah, really bad. Really bad. At least 2 a week. I had tons of restraining orders. I had 2 little girls, and a guy's jumping our gate with a giant buck knife. And yeah, in those days, I don't know if this is true now, but people would fixate. You could be in a soap commercial, and they would fixate on you. And there weren't a lot of stalker laws. And I just needed to be home anyway. There was 1 year where I was home 2 months, and that's not going to raise kids.
No.
Mine was scary. Mine was really scary. I remember someone sent me a box of bullets, you know, and people would send me like funeral wreaths they stole from a graveyard. There was a lot of psychos. I always had a bodyguard in the house, because that's where I didn't want to come home to a dark house. And I know I had one guy one night cut my screen in my bedroom and got in, and I shot him, and with rock salt and birdshot.
Did he go to jail?
I have no idea. I don't remember.
Did the stalking stop when you left the limelight?
No, not for a couple of years.
Are you ever asked to speak about it anywhere?
Not really.
No?
You know, it's not really my MO. You know, I don't want it to be, I'm the lady that was stalked. But, you know, I've maybe discussed it in 1 or 2 interviews. That's about it.
And you just, because of stalkers, decided to get off the air and go home. I pulled it
for a while, and every now and then I'll do like a Sundance film, or every now and then. I was in 2 movies last year.
Did stalking affect your children at the time?
They didn't know much about it. When we got married in Paris, there were a lot of paparazzi, and they were very pushy. And so that was kind of the first time they got a lot of awareness. I mean, they'd been on the red carpet with me, but it was the first time they were really chased through a marketplace or around. So they didn't like it.
No.
No.
And you raise chickens.
Yes, I do raise chickens.
Why?
Because I can. I don't know. I had a daughter. My middle daughter got Crohn's really bad. And we basically took her out of it with Chinese medicine. Western medicine wanted to put her on a machine the rest of her life and remove her intestines. It was bad. She was ulcered from her throat all the way down. And we used Chinese herbs and acupuncture because they treat it like, oh, this is all one, they treat the immune system differently. And we brought her back, and I started raising all our produce. And the chickens just kind of started going naturally with that. I think there was a salmonella outbreak when my third daughter was like 8 years old, and I decided to get some chickens, and it was easy.
And now with the price of eggs.
Yeah, I mean, I just got some new baby chicks, as a matter of fact. They sent me 9, thinking 3 would die because I ordered 6. So I might have some extras. It's going to be tight in some of the coops, but we'll work it out. There's always personality differences.
Oh, well, even with chickens, huh?
Yeah, even with chickens.
Were there instances where you thought your looks, because you became like an instant sex symbol and your poster was up and stuff?
Yeah, I was really typecast.
Were you?
Yeah. So I had some good roles. I did something with, I did Ford the Man Machine with Cliff
Robertson?
Robertson. And I did something with Martin Landau. I did something with Christopher Plummer. Those were 3 things I did. I worked in Sri Lanka on a German miniseries. I loved going on location. But that's when I started, looking at how much I was home, raising kids. And they were my husband's kids from a previous marriage, and they were young, and they were angry. They were like 4 and 6, and I needed to be home.
Did they not like the fact that you weren't their original mother or something, that they were angry?
It was the usual thing. You just don't personalize anything. Because if you say something wrong about either of their parents, that's like saying something's wrong with half of them. Mm-hmm. So I think really we're very close right now, all of us. I got a little bit of the mother anger was transferred to me, but on the whole, we kind of grew to love each other.
How long have you been together now as a family unit?
Oh my God, over 30 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
What else do you have lined up?
What else I have lined up? Well, I have certain charities. Work on the Rape Foundation. That's through UCLA now, and I work on Don't Get Purged, which is a website I run where you can check to make sure you haven't been purged, wrongfully purged before an election. A lot of people get swept up in voter roll purges and don't know, and I hate the thought of anybody, any political party, waiting 8 hours in line and then finding out they're not on the roll. So it's a website to make people aware of that.
Have you kept in touch with people who were on the Fall Guy with you? Like Lee?
I see Lee all the time.
Do you?
Yeah, when I do autograph shows every now and then. I do that. I'm writing 3 things. I've been selling a lot of work.
Yeah, I think I read that you wrote a novel.
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
It was because when I was a young wife, relatively young, let's say, 29, what happens in Los Angeles is all the various charities and activist groups, they survive on calling young wives and bringing them in and getting them into their organizations. And so what I noticed was this was an entirely interesting breed of people. You can think what you want about someone, a trophy wife, let's say it's the 3rd marriage or something. There isn't a school, university, there isn't a museum, there isn't a political candidate. There isn't a park, any kind of public thing, any kind of medical research, environmental conservation. None of that happens without the money from a trophy wife. They are responsible for about 80% of the donated monies in America, and I would say throughout the world.
Do you feel funny, or is it putting you down to refer to yourself as a trophy wife?
I don't know if I was a trophy wife or not, because Skip and I were friends for so long. And I certainly don't like the stereotype of someone who's vacuous who married an old guy for money, because I didn't marry an old guy, you know. But I sort of was plunged into that world. There were certainly a lot of women that were trophy wives. They were like married to guys like 40 years their senior, and it was an interesting group. So I couldn't help but have to write about them.
And have you enjoyed that? Has that given you a kind of a release in terms of your creativity?
I write scripts all the time and sell them.
Do you?
Yeah.
Any we would have heard of?
A couple of them. There was School Slut. That one's still in production. I have a whole bunch that like are bought, but they're not in turnaround yet. So I really can't talk about them.
Okay.
Because I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
And we'll be right back. Did you do your own stunts when you were on the Fall Guy?
Not all of them, no. I don't do fire
I
or
don't do that.
falling or, yeah. But the stunt fighting, yeah.
Did you ever get hurt?
No. Well, Lee almost broke my nose one time, but it didn't get too broken.
No, it looks fine.
Yeah.
Substance abuse crept into your life, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen?
Oh, God, it was back in the 80s. I was still a kid, and everybody was doing blow on the set. It was a closed set. And literally in those days, they said it's non-addictive. And then I said, you know what? I did it too much this year. I'm going to go to rehab. I went to, like, before rehab was glamorous. I just took myself to the local hospital and did a 30-day program.
And did it work first
Get
time?
off blow? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Has it been difficult sustaining that?
No.
Because a lot of people, I think, would have a problem with that.
No.
You never went back?
No.
Good for you. I went back a couple of times.
A lot of people do. You know, I drank. And I
did that too.
Yeah. I drink, but I don't. I never consider myself an alcoholic. So.
Tell me, what was it like being an instant sex symbol? Did you appreciate that? Did you like it? Did you like the attention?
Yeah. It was making me. I was making more money than I ever made in my life. I was young. I was happy. Why not?
From your lips to God's ears. Where were you born?
What year?
Where? I didn't
Where?
ask.
Greenwich,
I know better than
Connecticut.
to ask what year were you
You can
born.
ask what year. I'm not shy about my age.
Oh, okay.
I was born in Greenwich, Connecticut.
Do you get back there, or you still have ties there?
I lived there 5 minutes.
Okay. That's a good enough time to figure out a place.
Yeah. I'm a California girl.
Are you?
I lived in Rockview, Maryland from when I was 2 to 4. And then I've been in Santa Monica ever since.
2 to 4, you must not have too many memories of it.
I do. I remember in those days it was all forest. It was all forest. I remember the forest.
Well, I have a question for you from one of our Patreon subscribers. Her name is Zoe To Go. So she asks, back in the 80s, it seemed that in every photo you were in a bikini. Obviously, times have changed a little. Looking back, how did you feel about being so blatantly sexualized by Hollywood? That's from Zoe To Go.
I think there's a certain amount of disassociation, and it was really my business. It would be like a woman who sells bathing suits. It was the way I sold things. They didn't. In those days, it wasn't. It was accepted, and I understood when they were. When it if something got a little misogynist, there's a big difference. And I was happy with my body. I worked hard. It wasn't in a misogynistic way. In other words.
Mm-hmm. How are you able to, you've stepped back now for quite some time, are you able to observe changes? Are there changes that you've made note of in your head in Hollywood?
Yeah, of course. Women aren't confined to like using their feminine wiles to solve crime, There's more of an acceptance that it's just more reality that we're all human beings and equal intellectually. But who knows with today's atmosphere if that's going to change. But I think there's a big difference. And yeah, in my day, they swatted you on the butt, and there was, the guy you avoided at the rap party because he'd get handsy, or
Hi, honey.
You get pretty savvy about that. Women, by the time you're 12 years old, you can tell who's, men look at you like a lion looks like an impala. You kind of, in my day, you just kind of had survival instincts. Every woman did. It's like, I'm not going to be in the room with that one, and that one's drinking, okay, I'm going, or that one's getting high, I'm going. You just try to keep yourself out of a situation. So thankfully, that's gone away. I think Me Too went way overboard.
Do you?
Yeah, I think that's responsible for the bro backlash right now. That we're under, where they're angry about DEI. Well, the DEI is that's just a watchword for something people don't like. But I think that the Me Too went too far. People would get in trouble for complimenting someone's hair. That's ridiculous. I talked about this because, there were some programs we were doing with the Rape Foundation in high schools because violence and sex was starting to get mixed up, like creepy, where boys were hitting girls that wouldn't put out on and I was talking about this with Beatrice Woods, the mother of Dadaism. I had a friend who was her protege, and this is years and years ago. We went to visit her, and she had that, Happy Valley School or something with J.R. Krishnamurti, and she was a Dadaist and also spiritualist and everything. And because she had asked me what I was doing lately, and I said, well, I went to Sacramento and we were testifying about certain things happening in schools, and we're doing a program. And she said, nobody square dances anymore. And I kind of thought, oh, that's nice, Beatrice. She said, no, listen to me. It was boys and girls touching each other in a non-competitive way. Nowadays, they don't want anybody to touch anybody. That's not human. But it seems to me that if you look at old movies, the ones that occurred kind of during the war, and there was a period where men and women seemed to be more friends. Yeah, there were stereotypical roles, but it was a much more friendly atmosphere. It wasn't this hateful atmosphere that's out now.
When I was growing up and we had square dancing at school, my mother would send a note to get me out of it because we were Baptist and we didn't dance.
Oh, my.
Oh, my, yes. That was the rule. And it
Were
worked.
you a Jack Baptist?
Yes. Jack Baptist.
Jack Mormons and Jack Baptists.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How is it you got so involved in activism?
I had a lot of time on my hands and a lot of money.
That's good.
It's true.
Yeah.
But also, if you're a public figure, I think you have a duty to give
A responsibility.
back. If you have money, you have a responsibility to give back to the community. And if you don't have money, you have a responsibility to give back to the community. And I'd see something I didn't like. I started out as a feminist, and that evolved into. I remember with Bruce Valanche during AIDS, we had a charity that would get psychiatrists and therapists for people with AIDS, or I'd fight for the rainforest or something. You know, I lobbied Congress and the Senate in Washington for the NRDC. You know, trying to get toxics out of our food, or begging them not to put radioactive material into the recycling market. You wouldn't believe what they've tried to pass over the years, but I fear for that now. I fear that because there's an onslaught changing now of getting deregulation, and I think we're in a political upheaval where people aren't really aware of what's happening. It's so much, it's like a fire hose. So I worry for that.
Ted Lange, do you know Ted?
Yes, he directed me in a Fall Guy.
Well, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
How was he to work with?
Wonderful.
He came here and talked with us.
He's
and,
lovely.
Yeah,
I loved
he gave
him.
us a very nice interview, very nice sit-down
He's a very
interview.
good guy.
Is he?
Mm-hmm. I like him a lot.
What makes him a good guy here in Hollywood?
He's actually very respectful. I watched him work with a crew. He was on time, knew his stuff. He was a fantastic director. I was really happy with him.
Do you ever see him or hear from him or talk to him?
No, I do not.
No?
No.
Would you be able to give advice, for example, to a Sydney Sweeney who's enjoying the kind of popularity you did at the height of your popularity?
Really, I don't think she needs any advice. I think she's doing fantastic. And there are roles now for women as you age where there weren't in, say, the 70s. I think there's bigger roles than the grandmother or the mom or the nosy neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
There's a billion different, parts you can play. They're very interesting parts at my age. So I don't know if I'd warn her about anything except for watch your business, people. That's the most important thing.
How so?
Well, I'm the wife of a lawyer, an
That
entertainment
helps.
attorney, and I've seen how many people have been ripped off by their business managers.
Mm-hmm.
And how many times he had to bring giant stars that someone would think are filthy rich. He had to bring them back from bankruptcy or had to get their money back. So that's the first thing I say. Be careful with your business people.
What did you think of the Fall Guy movie that came out last year?
I loved it. I was in it.
Oh.
I'm in the post credits.
The
I do a
post
cameo.
credits?
Yeah. You know how Marvel always has a post credit
Right.
thing? Yeah, Lee and I are in the post credits.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Have you gotten any feedback from the public about that?
Yeah, great feedback. I went to the premiere. They treated me right. It was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun working again.
That's good. Let me get back to that for a second, where you were just before this. Paris? You got married in Paris?
Yes.
How nice. How did you decide that?
Because we knew that if we got married in L.A., because of who my husband was, we'd have to invite half the city and pay for dinners for people we don't even like. So we decided to go to Paris, save the money, and have an awesome honeymoon.
And did you?
Yes. Yes.
Tell me about it.
We did a week at the Ritz, and that was kind of gnarly because...
In Paris?
Yes.
The Ritz where Diana spent her last night or something? Princess Diana?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that hotel.
Yeah.
I love it. I love going to Jar, the jewelry store, right there. And you walk into the room, and then they raise the velvet partition, and you see all the jewels in the dark. I love that place. And then we got to go to Venice. And in Venice, I remember it was October. There's nobody there. It didn't smell, and there were no tourists. It was so romantic, and it was
didn't
just kind of
smell.
foggy. Well, it can get kind of ripe in the summer.
Yeah, I know.
And I remember, you know that first square in front of St. Mark's?
Mm-hmm.
Not the one in front of the Doges, but the first square, I guess that's in front of the Doge's Palace, right? First one's the Doge's, second one's St. Mark's. Okay, in front of the Doge's, we just ate at Harry's Bar, and we walk into this square, and instead of solid cafes all the way around, none of them were open except for one, where there was a saxophone player playing My Blue Heaven.
Oh.
And my husband grabbed me and waltzed me around that square. That was on our honeymoon.
That's romantic.
That and gondolas and boat trips. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Had a beautiful honeymoon.
I've heard the phrase, see Venice and die, because there's nothing else to live for, they say.
Food is pretty good.
Yeah, the food is good.
You can't
but
beat the food.
you can't beat the food in Paris either.
No, the
think.
food in Paris is a good scarf.
Yeah, a good scarf. Heather, was there a time when your looks hurt your career?
Well, I was very blonde and I had done a lot of body stuff, so there's an obligatory condescension that goes with being a blonde. A type, so yes, in certain ways. But you can always find a role.
You have a very good attitude about this. No matter what, you're...
When I want to work, I can work.
Really?
Yeah, I've sold everything I've ever pitched and I can work.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Do you have your name out there in terms of auditions or things you would like to do?
No.
When you hear of something, do you go after it?
I'm still a member of the guild.
Yeah.
And if there was something I really wanted, I would go for it. Right now, I'm just concentrated on my grandkids, my family.
How many grandkids do you have?
4.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And your family?
And my family. And I've got 3 daughters, so there's a bunch of little families, except for one. One's very young. And I'm concentrated on politics and some activism right now. I think that's where I can contribute the best.
Did any of the children go into acting?
No.
Did you warn them against it?
No.
Did you encourage them to go into it?
No. My oldest daughter was in all the plays and all through school, but she became a lawyer, where an acting background is very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Well, when having your husband is very helpful too.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a lawyer.
Well, yeah, she was a litigator though. He's a living legend of a deal maker.
I'm trying to remember what he did or who he represented. Brittenham?
Yeah, Skip.
Did he represent Michael Jackson for a while?
Ziffern Brittenham Branca did. John Branca was the lawyer for Michael Jackson. Skip represented him in some things.
Okay, because the name is very familiar.
He's in the Richard Pryor documentary. He's represented Henry Winkler and Harrison Ford forever. He's represented everything from Comcast to Warner Brothers to Jeff Katzenberg, David Geffen, everybody.
Busy guy.
His firm
Top
has
notch.
Beyonce. Yeah, we could go on and on and on.
Okay.
Kevin Feige is his client.
Who?
Kevin Feige,
Oh.
Marvel. Millions of producers, all the independent television.
Are you happy?
I'm so happy. He's a good guy. I'm madly in love with him. Married him a long time ago. We've been married 30 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, I married my best friend.
That's the way to do it.
Yep,
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate
you.
it. Thanks for coming in.
that was fun.
Still Here Hollywood is a production of the Still Here Network. All things technical run by Justin Zangerly. Theme music by Brian Sanashin. And executive producer is Jim Lichtenstein.